We are a week into 2024 and it looks like our dud winter will finally be coming to an end, at least briefly, this week as the Pacific Northwest will be getting into a very interesting weather pattern. But before that, there is a lot of weather to talk about. So we got a wind advisory up out from Ridgefield all the way down to Albany, out towards Central Oregon, the Columbia Basin, and out towards Burns, and even a high wind warning north of the Dalles and out towards Pendleton and Condon, because we're going to be seeing wind gusts between about 35 to 50 miles per hour potentially later today and into Tuesday across the Willamette Valley, but much more excessive. Central Oregon and the Basin, we're talking gusts as high as 55 to 70 miles per hour. And what about the mountains and out the coast? Well, they will be getting their share of that wind Tuesday and into Wednesday. In fact, we actually have a high surf warning in effect in that time frame out at the coast, because those gusty winds will be bringing breakers 28 to 35 feet. And that'll also be affecting wind gusts across the northern blues, as in that time frame, they're actually going to be seeing a blizzard warning. So not only decent snowfall accumulations, but that'll also bring gusts as high as 60 miles an hour. The Cascades, anywhere between about 45 to 75 miles per hour. And then starting midweek and through the weekend, modified Arctic air spills into our region. And any time in that time frame, low elevation snow and ice is possible. I will say that at least at some point during this week, most areas of Oregon, travel should be very difficult to impossible, at least briefly coming up. Although that exception would be the southern Willamette Valley and portions of the coast. I'll be talking about why in just a second. But let's get into the 7-day view out at the coast, brought to you by G-Weather. Steady heavy rain all day Monday, highs into low to mid 50s out at the coast. Won't be as steady on Tuesday, but still be very numerous and heavy at times, as we could be seeing some heavy downpours and some thunderstorms potentially. Slightly cooler though, mid to the upper 40s to about 50 degrees. And we start to see a little bit of cooler air work its way in Wednesday morning, as our next system brings briefly some steady moisture in the early morning hours of Wednesday. And yes, it's possible that some of you will be into the 30s. And if you get slightly cooler than this, models are insisting that a few areas maybe sees a little bit of snow out at the beach. But I think the best case scenario to see that would be into those higher elevations, and especially out towards the coast range, where I think we'll absolutely be seeing those light snow accumulations. But watch that just in case. Although I actually think even a slightly better likelihood for a dusting or a little bit more of snow on the beach, maybe Friday morning, although it's going to be really isolated, because we'll start to feed off of an east wind, I think, out towards maybe places like Astoria or Tillamook, the north end of the coast, Friday morning. And it's possible that a few of you out that way is cold enough to pick up a little bit of snow. Yet, once you get south of there, we're talking Florence, Newport, Lincoln City, much of you will be around 50 degrees most of the day, while the north end of the coast could start out 10 to 15 degrees cooler. So keep an eye on that. But during the day Friday, I think will be mostly dry. It's just that brief moisture early Friday morning, and then steady moisture returning into the evening, which should be all rain, as those temperatures do warm up even at the north end of the coast to at least 40 degrees. But then the north end of the coast expands that east wind models are showing right this moment, at least a little bit, to where the north end of the coast could be dealing with maybe a little bit of freezing rain Saturday. That could be a concern, although I still think the upper atmosphere by that point would be too warm for any snow during the day Saturday at the coast. But it's possible that it could be an icy mess. Maybe. We're still far out. This could change, but I wanted to give you a heads up. But central and southern coast, absolutely not. I think that will be rain with temperatures still sticking around into the 40s. And then whatever moisture is left on Sunday, even though there won't be much, all areas should see that in the form of raindrops. Heading into the I-5 corridor, that steady moisture we've been seeing this morning, that rain will be breaking up. Off and on showers during the day today, highs into the mid to the upper 40s to about 50 degrees. Numerous shots of rain for your Tuesday with similar temperatures, but we'll start to notice those gusts really kicking in, like I said, between about 35 to 50 miles per hour potentially. Wednesday morning, just like the coast, we start to see a little bit of cooler air working its way in, and the I-5 corridor, I think, has a slightly better chance to get colder. So although this definitely isn't likely, and I think most of you on the valley floor won't be seeing any snow Wednesday morning, I think if you manage to get near freezing, a few of you might see light snow accumulations. Although best bet would be up above 500 to 1,000 feet, but keep an eye closely for a few of you on the valley floor Wednesday morning. Otherwise, Thursday morning is much drier, so I don't think we'll be dealing with any possible snow accumulations, although we will be slightly warmer, so that's why. In the hills, maybe we see a dusting of snow, but that would be it. Otherwise, just off and on rain showers during the day, although that could change into Friday. That's when our wind flow changes to the east for some of you, really out towards the gorge, portions of the Portland metro area, and into portions of southwest Washington, meaning north and east of Portland in the 24-hour period on Friday. Maybe we'll see a dusting to 3 inches of snow. We'll start out with some scattered snow accumulations Friday morning with that, but then we'll get a steady period of rain and snow into the evening. So that combined could see that. Although south and west of Portland, I think will be a much harder chance to see that, as that should be all rain except for maybe portions of that area into the Portland metro maybe sees a dusting, but overall best chance north and east of Portland. Although it gets even more interesting, I believe, Friday night into Saturday. Really, more of the northern Willamette Valley and into southwest Washington feeds off. Right now, I'm thinking of that east wind. Still subject to change, but this at least is what I'm looking at right at this moment, meaning north and east of Portland, 5 to 10 inches is possible of snow during the day Saturday, if everything lines up correctly. But if this is the case, and I think further south in Willamette Valley, south of Portland, could see anywhere from absolutely nothing to as much as maybe a few inches of snow. And I think as you kind of progress throughout the central Willamette Valley, it'll be much harder to come by snow, but it will be much easier to come by freezing rain. But as you go all the way south into the Willamette Valley, let's say out towards Eugene, I don't think they'll be dealing with any wintry weather, just rain. That's like what I said earlier, that the farther south you go, the impacts for that travel won't be that serious. But like I said, further north, that's where I'm watching for a potential storm in areas Saturday, as much of you holding into the 30s, except for those southern areas, more like around 40 degrees. Anything left over Sunday morning would be scattered, but would fall as rain, I believe, south of Portland by that point, but it's possible up towards southwest Washington, areas near the gorge, maybe sees an additional scattered dustings Sunday morning. Into the Cascades, we're going to be seeing tons of snow. Huge snowstorm this week for sure. Heading into your Monday, right now we're starting to see that snow, and we'll see that increase throughout the coming hours, but once we progress more throughout the afternoon, those temperatures will be warming at pass level to where we could be mixing in with maybe a little bit of ice or rain, while the highest elevations still just see that snow, but that precipitation will become steadier and heavier as we progress throughout the day. Highs between about 30 to 40 degrees, 1 to 5 inches expected 24-hour total today at pass level. That could be 5 to 15 inches up above 5,000 feet. And these temperatures could be what we're looking at Tuesday around midnight. But quickly during the morning hours, we see those temperatures drastically drop. We're talking between about 25 to 35 degrees for daytime highs. As I'm looking at steady heavy snow all day for the Cascades, we're talking 10 to 20 inches at pass level. 20 to 40 inches is possible into those highest elevations. That snow really backs off Wednesday. We're only going to be seeing maybe a half foot additionally over the pass and maybe a foot over to those higher elevations or slightly more. And similar conditions will be heading into Thursday with those snow amounts, as we'll be seeing an additional wave of snow increasing during the day, letting up again, maybe only a few inches at pass level on Friday, and 5 to 15 inches into those higher elevations. Our next threat and more heavy snow, another storm coming through, would be Saturday. And keep a look at this. Higher elevation Saturday could be dealing with single digits, possibly. Not set in stone, but it's definitely a possibility with daytime highs only into the teens. We're talking an additional 8 to 16 inches, maybe at pass level. Again, it's so hard to predict this far out, but I've done so much research over the past 24 hours to try to give you somewhat of a look that could happen throughout the next 7 days. And that could be 16 to 24 potentially if everything lines up correctly into those highest elevations, and only a couple inches left over Sunday before we see drying conditions during the day. Out towards the gorge, this is very interesting. We're kind of looking at a mix of 30s and 40s right now. So some of you have been seeing a little bit of scattered snowflakes in the air and into those western areas of the gorge, particularly higher in elevation. Maybe you guys see an inch or two in very isolated areas throughout the coming hours before everything switches to rain during the day, and that becomes steady and slightly heavier, highs into low to mid 40s. And then everything is rain most of the day Tuesday. Very heavy rain rates, torrential rainfall expected, again with those winds gusting fairly high. And then into the afternoon, those heavy rain rates subside, but I don't really expect much break still in that moisture. And then I am expecting cooling temperatures into Tuesday evening, meaning we could see a mix of rain and snow potentially into Tuesday evening. So through about midnight that night, it's possible that we see trace amounts of snow for some of you, and maybe as much as a few inches into those higher elevations out towards the west end of the gorge. Obviously, still too far out at this point to even pinpoint locations, but just keep an eye on that. Although, I think that's a slightly better chance into Wednesday morning as we get another, or really see that steady moisture continue, at least briefly, into the early morning hours of Wednesday. At that point, I think most locations will be cold enough to at least see snow in the air Wednesday. And all of you, I think, across the gorge has the potential to see traces of snow. Although into those higher elevations, west end of the gorge, maybe you see as much as 6 inches. Again, these are purely possibilities, nothing set in stone, but just wanted to alert you about that. Slightly less on Thursday, as we're going to be dealing with less precipitation to start out the day before that increases in the afternoon and evening along with that wind. But then anything that falls Friday would be snow showers. I would think fairly similar amounts, potentially just as we would see on Wednesday. If we had more moisture, that would obviously be more. But latest run of the European actually wanted to dry out more than what the GFS is showing on Friday. So I don't think a chance of a storm like that model is showing is not likely Friday. Although, maybe it happens on Saturday. We're getting a lot of agreement for those models right now. Maybe you get a foot of snow, give or take, into those higher elevations, west end of the gorge, and maybe as much as 4 to 8 inches, all areas and out towards the east end of the gorge. That could be another steady, heavy snow day with temperatures dipping all the way down into the teens, maybe as low as 10 degrees Saturday morning, slightly warmer into Sunday with trace amounts maybe into the early morning hours. Into the Columbia River Basin, we're talking Hermiston, Pendleton, and a little bit west of there before it becomes the gorge. It's possible that we get into the low to mid 40s this afternoon, meaning anything that would fall would be rain. And really, it will be fairly scattered though. So overall, not that wet of a day. I think we'll see less precipitation heading into Tuesday, slightly warmer temperatures as well, more of those sun breaks mixing in. And some of you at the east end will be getting up to 50, let's say out towards Pendleton. And then again, here's another chance for maybe a few waves of some numerous shower activity Wednesday morning, with those temperatures potentially being in the low to mid 30s, meaning out towards the east end, maybe between Hermiston and Pendleton, could see a dusting, maybe an inch or two. West end, though, I really don't think we'll see anything, as that precipitation probably will be non-existent the further west you go. I think another carbon copy of that on Thursday, although that potential for that little bit of snow at the east end would be in the evening rather than the morning, but that wind will continue and increase, and then we see those temperatures drastically drop in the 40s Thursday, potentially into the 20s for a lot of you on Friday morning, and that's another chance for a brief period of steady snow, maybe, and that could be maybe blanketing much of the basin with at least a dusting and maybe a few inches out towards the east end, out towards Pendleton, but it's not really until Saturday that's your best chance for a widespread snowstorm, 3 to 6 inches at the west end, 4 to 8 inches possibly out towards the east end, with those temperatures during the day sticking around into the teens for a lot of you, possibly early morning numbers as low as the single digits before we warm up a bit and dry out into Sunday with just some trace amounts in the morning. Out towards the high desert, I'm expecting those temperatures to top out between 30 and 40 degrees today. We've been seeing some scattered snow flurries around, and as we progress throughout the day, that moisture will get more widespread and numerous and mixed with some graupel and rain. Although it's possible late this evening, maybe we see a dusting, maybe we see an inch of snow out towards Ontario actually, and Bend. But your best chance to see a couple inches would be out towards Burns and up above that elevation of about 4,000 feet. And into Tuesday, I think will be more of a scattered mix of just rain, snow, and graupel showers throughout the day, as I think temperatures could be slightly warmer for areas. And that's when that wind really starts to kick in. We could see a couple more inches potentially out towards places like Bend, and potentially up above Burns. Could see as much as 3 to 6 inches, but maybe Ontario sees nothing, or maybe additional dusting. Otherwise, anything that falls Wednesday now starts the trend for snow, as most of whatever falls would be in the morning when those temperatures are between about 20 to 30 degrees. And that could be a couple more inches potentially into those higher elevations, trace amounts, lowest elevations. That trend really continues Thursday into Friday, although slightly less moisture expected as we're seeing higher wind gusts work their way back in. And your best shot at widespread snow across the high desert would be Saturday. That could be potentially an inch of snow, at least for those lowest elevations, to as much as a half a foot. And into those higher elevations up above Burns, we could see as much as 8 inches of snow potentially, as those temperatures dip all the way down into the teens Saturday morning, trace amounts into Sunday morning, but much drier, so it's possible out that way. Single digits are possible. And finally, heading into the Blue Mountains, heading into your Monday, those temperatures will only be topping out as high as 35 across your valley locations, after most of us into those higher elevations started out into the teens this morning. We'll see that snow become steady later today. So across La Grande through midnight tonight, we could be seeing 1 to 3 inches of snow. And that is also probably the case out towards John Day, maybe slightly more out towards Baker County. But once you get up above Meacham into Tollgate, that could be 3 to 8 inches of snow possible. And then Tuesday, we start to warm up a bit, mixing with a little bit of rain and graupel, but still a fairly wet morning with that snow falling in the air for at least all locations before that moisture backs off during the day and those valley highs warm to about 40 degrees. It's possible that LeGrand sees an additional dusting of snow Tuesday morning, but overall, I think your best chance for accumulations would stay up above 3,000 feet, where we could see a few inches of snow out towards Meacham and maybe as much as a half a foot out towards Tollgate, or possibly more, and especially into Anthony Lakes, where we could be seeing more than a foot of snow. But then anything that falls Wednesday would be in the form of snow. But again, it will be a bit drier, expecting LeGrand and out towards John Day. We could be seeing a few inches more of snow on Wednesday, maybe as much as a half a foot to a foot into those highest elevations. Similar conditions on Thursday, but the difference is that snow will become steadier and slightly heavier into the evening as more of those windy conditions move on in, as many of you will be cooling down into the 20s, except for John Day, which could honestly miss out on a lot of the severe cold late week. But other than that, all of you across the Blue Mountains will be severely cooling off quite a bit. Friday morning could see another steady period of snow before that's much more scattered and isolated during the day, as we could see similar snowfall amounts that we've been seeing pretty consistently on midweek. It's not until Saturday morning. I think most of you Saturday morning could drop to 10 degrees, but it's possible some of you will be in the single digits and maybe flirting with sub-zero temperatures. Be watching that very closely, particularly somewhere out towards Meacham. That could happen, so keep an eye on that. Otherwise, that will be short-lived as we see developing snow during the day Saturday, as that could become heavy at times. I'm expecting all valley locations could see a decent storm of 3 to 6 inches for your Saturday potentially, and into those higher elevations, an additional half a foot to possibly slightly more than a foot. And then as we get into Sunday, we start to warm up a bit as some of those valley locations reach 30 degrees, and we can see a couple more inches into the early parts of Sunday morning. And that is your winter weather outlook this week. Be safe on the roads, and that is your forecast.